Before I begin with this video, I would like to say a few things. These stories are EMT horror stories, which some of them do contain some graphic material. If you have a weak stomach, this may not be the video for you. Viewer discretion as advised. A friend of mine was a paramedic, and most of these calls that she was involved in having to do with injuries, she has been through a lot of these distress calls. Some of them with kids, however, are usually the worst. While she was driving in an ambulance, she got a call about a young girl who fell from a 10-foot building. Of course, she was barely alive by the time the ambulance arrived, but however, they rushed her to the hospital as quick as they could. However, when they got there, she wasn't alive or moving, to which was really profoundly very sad and also disturbing to see. There was no evidence as to how she managed to get this insane, but if one were to speak up, it would have to be that she had wanted to die or something like that. There was no trace of any fights that she had, but whatever it was definitely profoundly sad. Firefighters of the EMT were called in on a scene from a young woman at the age of 25 that a house across the street from where she was burning. The firefighters arrived there to find out that the house was owned by an elderly. Of course, the firefighters did try to put out the fire and keep it under control. The elderly lady who lived in there was trapped, and the husband managed to get out alive, but unfortunately the wife had died in the fire. It was profoundly sad, but what was really disturbing was that there was some faulty wiring that caused the fire. That was the known cause of the fire, as they found out how the fire was caused. This story, still to this day, really puts a chill on firefighters, and this is something they had to go through every day when it comes to fighting fires. So this happened to an EMT officer back in 2017. He had responded a call from someone who said their car was stuck on the train tracks and there was an oncoming train. Of course, the paramedics were rushing to get there on time and tried to see if they could save the lives of the people that were stuck on the car. Unfortunately, when they got there, the car was already ran over and smashed and was broken to pieces. Sadly, though, when the train had passed, they end up looking at the scene to find that no one unfortunately had survived that train wreck. Getting a car stuck in the train tracks is not only horrifying, but it is also so really upsetting to see and hear that some people in their car got ran over by a train that didn't have any time or act quick enough to get out of that area. This was one of the calls that an EMT officer had to deal with, as paramedics have suffered through this every day to ensure everybody has safe lives. This was one of them that some people had quit their job after this, as they couldn't witness any more of harmful and even disturbing accidents and stuff. This is something EMTs have to go for every day, and it is very stressful. A police officer used to do these calls back then, and this was around 2016. They had got a call from a young girl who said that she was kidnapped and that she was in an abandoned house. This was taking place in Ohio, so the officers had to try to find out where the house that they lived. She said it was an old and abandoned house not far from the nearest town. Of course, that's when a few officers were there to search the house. By the time they got to the house, they could hear screaming coming from upstairs. That's when the officers rushed up to see that there was a man, mostly in his 40s, and held the girl at gunpoint. She was literally crying for her life as he begged the man not to shoot and kill her. However, this man looked at him, and he looked really furious. He ended up saying something that would forever scar, but also is a threat that he had made to the officers. He said, "Don't you ever dare take another step or I'll blow her brains out." As he said that, the girl began whimpering at this. Thus, the officer ended up calling to say that they needed backup and that backup was on their way. Of course, the man ended up putting the girl down, but shot one of the officers in an attempt to make an escape. However, though he didn't get far as backup had arrived and they arrested the man. As it turns out, this man had been kidnapping a few people, and he had been kidnapping for a while. There was no evidence as to why he had been doing this, but all we know is that he had been killing people by taking them to abandoned houses where no one would reach out this far. How the girl manages to get a hold of 911 was because the man had left a phone for her to call or play games or something, because he was out doing stuff when she called. The officers were just glad that they managed to save the girl and got her back to her parents, as she had been missing for at least a couple of weeks. She had gone missing about maybe 4 weeks ago, and her family had been trying to find her since. This goes to show you that the world is a very dangerous place, and that anything bad could potentially happen to you. It will just take place at a right moment and the right time. Had the officers had reached there any later, God only knows what could have happened to that young girl.